After that, we every week we do a different meditation. So the one we'll do tonight is compassion and tonglen, which means giving and taking. It's a very special practice in the Tibetan tradition. So I'll explain that, and then we'll do a meditation on that. So first of all, let's think about why we're here. What is our reason, our motivation for being here? Sometimes we aren't really sure why we do the things we do. We just act impulsively. We feel like doing something and then we do it, but we're not really sure why we do it. Other times we might do things with a sort of bad motivation, like wanting to get something just for ourselves, or wanting to hurt somebody, get back at somebody who has hurt us, or whatever. So if we have a bad motivation or just a kind of confused or neutral motivation, not really sure what we're doing, why we're doing things, then it's the outcome is not so sure to be positive. So if we want a positive outcome for the things that we do, it's good to try to make sure our motivation is a good one, a positive one. And in Buddhism, it said the best motivation to have is altruism, meaning caring about others, wanting to help others as much as we can, wanting to reach enlightenment, Buddhahood, awakening, so that we can help others more and more. So if that feels comfortable to you, if you feel good about that, then you can think something like, my reason for being here tonight is so that I can learn things that will help me to grow and develop myself so that I can be more helpful to others, make my life useful, meaningful, beneficial for others as much as possible. Something like that. But if on the other hand you might feel uncertain about your ability to help others, you might think, well, I'm really a mess myself and I have so much work to do on myself. I don't feel I can really help others right now. That's okay. You could then think that your reason for being here tonight is that you want to learn things that will help you to be more peaceful, happy, calm, positive. Because if you do things with that motivation, if you do become more positive and more peaceful, then naturally you'll be more helpful to others. You won't be so likely to do things that hurt others or disturb others or make others unhappy. And you will probably have more energy and more ability to do things that are helpful to others. So even without intending to, your life will probably be more helpful to others. So that's another possible motivation. It would be to think, I'm here because I want to work on myself. I want to learn how to be a nicer person, a happier, calmer, more peaceful person, something like that. So just take a few moments to try to generate a positive motivation, a positive reason for being here tonight. Okay, so now for the body scan. Start with the top of your head. Feel the top of your head. See if you can notice any sensations there. And let that area relax. Let go of any tension there might be. Then let your awareness move down into your forehead. Let your forehead relax. And then feel your eyes and let your eyes relax. Let the muscles around your eyes and behind your eyes relax. And then feel the other muscles in your face and let them relax. So let your whole face be as relaxed as possible. But if you wish, you can have a smile on your mouth and on your lips. Just a little bit of a smile that can actually help your mind to be more relaxed, more peaceful and happy. And then feel the right side of your head and let that area relax. Then relax the back of your head. And then the left side of your head. Then go inside of your head. If you can feel sensations inside of your head. And if you notice tension, tightness anywhere inside, see if you can let it go. So try to have the whole of your head, both the inside and the outside, as relaxed as possible. Don't worry if you're not able to completely relax, if there's still some little spots of tension somewhere that you can't let go of. So don't worry about that. Don't be upset about that. Struggle with it. So just let it be. Just try the best you can to relax and let go of tension. Then let your awareness move down into your neck and throat. And let go of any tension in that area. And then let your awareness move down into the upper part of your back. Relax your shoulders, your shoulder blades, shoulder muscles. Do the best you can to let go of any tension in that area. And then let the awareness continue to move down through your back. Relax the middle part of the back. And then the lower part of the back. So try to have the whole of your back as relaxed as possible, light, free of tension. But again, don't worry if you can't let go of every bit of tension. Just do the best you can. And then shift your awareness to your chest. And we'll start going down through the front part of the body. So first relax your chest, both the outside and the inside, the lungs, the heart. And then let the awareness continue moving down through the middle part of your body. Relax the area around the diaphragm, including the organs and muscles. And then further down the area around the abdomen, all the organs, muscles. So if there's any tension anywhere, you can imagine it turning into liquid and flowing out of you, draining out of you, and sinking down into the earth beneath us. And while we're in that area, just take a look at your breathing. It's good if when we breathe, there's some movement of the abdomen in and out so that we're breathing deeply and not just in a shallow way where just the chest is moving. So try to breathe deeply and fully and in a natural way, not in a forced way. So with that kind of breathing, we can also become more relaxed. Each breath coming in, helping us be more relaxed. Each breath going out, releasing tension. And then relax the area around the pelvis and the hips and buttocks. And next we'll do the right leg. Let your awareness move down into the upper part of the leg, the thigh. Relax the muscles, release any tension. And then relax your right knee. And then the lower part of the right leg. The right ankle. And finally the foot, all the way down to the toes. Let the whole of your right leg, all the way down to the toes, be as relaxed as possible. then shift your awareness to the left leg, starting with the upper part, the thigh. Relax the thigh. And then the knee. And the lower part of the leg. And ankle. And the foot, all the way down to the toes. So let the whole of the left leg be as relaxed as possible. And next we'll do the right arm. So bring your awareness up to the upper part of the arm. Relax all the muscles in that area. And then the elbow. Then the lower part of the arm. The wrist. And the hand and fingers. And try to have the whole of your right arm all the way down to the fingers as relaxed as possible. And then shift your awareness to the left arm, starting with the upper part. Relax the upper part of the arm. Then the elbow. And lower arm. And the wrist. Hand and fingers. So we've gone through the whole body, trying to relax it as much as possible. So try to keep the body relaxed the rest of the time we're meditating. Try not to let tension pop up anywhere. If it does, you can just put your awareness there and let the tension go. And now focus on the breathing. You can do that wherever and however you're most comfortable with. For example, at the nostrils or the abdomen or the chest. So you can choose your own way to watch the breath, be aware of the breath. The important thing is to stay with the breath as much as possible. Use it as a kind of anchor to keep your mind settled in the present, the here and now. Because the mind tends to wander away, thinking about the past or the future or other places or things in your life. So when that happens, be aware of it. Don't be upset. Don't beat yourself up. Just know that that's the natural habit of the mind. The mind has that habit, so it's hard to stop. So when you notice your mind has wandered away from the breath, just gently disengage from that other object and come back to the breath. And you can keep doing that again and again and again. There's no problem, nothing wrong with that. It's actually a good thing to do. This is the meaning of meditation, is training our mind to stay focused on some object like the breath. So be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself, and just keep coming back to the breath whenever the mind wanders away. And try to maintain an attitude of friendliness, kindness, patience towards yourself and towards every part of you, your body, your mind, your thoughts, your feelings, as well as other people and things around us. Try not to let yourself get angry, upset, impatient. if there's something happening that you don't like. So if that does happen, notice it, but then let it go and come back to the breath. Remember that whatever comes up in your mind, thought or memory or feeling or image or sound, whatever experience, it only lasts a moment, a bit like a bubble or a cloud or a wave, something that comes and lasts only a moment and then it goes. None of these things are permanent, lasting, always there. So understanding that can help us not take our experiences so seriously and instead just notice them and then let them go and come back to the object of meditation, which in this case is the breath. And try not to feel that you're meditating in order to get something, in order to achieve some experience, some fantastic thing happening. Just meditate to meditate. Do it just to be doing it, just to get to know yourself better, to slowly, gradually transform yourself for the better, but not to achieve something. Grasping at that will actually be an obstacle to getting anywhere in meditation. So let go of all such expectations or grasping and just be happy to be sitting here, paying attention to the breath, being in the present. So we have just a few more minutes of the meditation. Try to use these last few minutes to really stay focused on the breath and bring your mind back to the breath when it wanders away. Motorcycle meditation. I think they should be banned. Send them out to the countryside. So, mm, um, so as I mentioned before, tonight we'll do meditation on Tonglen. Have you heard of that before? Some people have probably. Pema Chodron has made it kind of famous. If you've read any of her books, she teaches it a lot. Pema Chodron. Yeah. So Tonglen is a Tibetan term and it means giving and taking. And it's a meditation that involves just using visualization. You imagine taking away the suffering of others and giving them happiness. So it's a practice that's done to enhance and increase our compassion. Compassion, and last week we did a meditation on loving kindness, and loving kindness is said to be the wish for others to have happiness and for ourselves as well. So we need to feel that way towards ourselves, but also towards others, wishing happiness. So it's when we see another person or another being as worthy of our respect and our care and our concern, and that we realize that they want to be happy and we want them to be happy, and so we do whatever we can to make them happy and not make them unhappy. So we try to preserve the happiness of other beings. And compassion is somewhat similar to love. It's a bit like the other side of the coin, and in that it is the wish for others to not suffer. So it's based on recognizing that nobody wants suffering. We don't want to suffer, but also others don't want to suffer. Nobody likes pain. Nobody wants to die or be killed or be hurt or be hungry, cold, and so on. So nobody likes problems. We all want to be free of problems. So realizing that, recognizing that, and then wishing that to come about, wishing others and oneself to be free of suffering, to be free of problems. But even though we wish for that, we can't make it happen because there is suffering. Um, and So when we develop compassion, cultivate compassion, try to have more and more and more compassion, it takes a certain amount of courage, because to have compassion, we have to be willing to deal with suffering, face suffering, problems, difficulties. We have to be willing to look at them and not turn away and, oh, that's too terrible. I can't look at that. I can't deal with that. It's makes me upset. So there's a certain amount of courage needed to have compassion, and that we because what happens sometimes is when it comes to suffering and problems, we find it just too much, overwhelming and frightening, disturbing, and we just want to run away or turn away, look away, close our mind, not think about it, and so on. It's understandable, but um, uh, that interferes with compassion because if we don't want to deal with suffering, then it's hard to have compassion. Does that make sense what I'm saying? And when I mean, if we do have this sort of fear or aversion towards suffering and want to just turn away from it, run away from it, there are things we can do to overcome that and learn to be more accepting and more courageous in the face of suffering. One thing is just to remember impermanence, as the Buddha taught, uh, that everything's impermanent. And so that means suffering is also impermanent. It's not going to last forever. So getting more familiar with impermanence and understanding that suffering and problems and pain and war and sickness and injuries and so forth are not permanent. They're not going to be there forever. They're impermanent. They come and they go. They're there and then they pass. So that getting familiar with that, getting used to that can help us to be more courageous about dealing with suffering, not so frightened. And um, anyway, there's some other things I can talk about later if you're interested. But what the Dalai Lama says is that compassion itself gives us courage. So the more we can generate this feeling of compassion, really connecting with other people, understanding that they don't want to suffer and wanting to help them to be free of suffering. So that itself can give courage. It's like, for example, people who work as firemen, firefighters, or rescue workers. So they must have a certain amount of compassion, I think, to do that kind of work. They must really feel that they want to help people, they want to save people, they want to rescue people who are in danger. Like just recently, the last few days, this terrible fire in London. There was something like 400 firefighters working all night long. I mean, I guess they had to take breaks and doing shifts, but two whole nights and a day working to get out to put out this fire. So that takes a lot of courage, a lot of energy, a lot of strength, and I think much of it, I hope, I assume, comes from some sense of compassion, that there are people who are suffering and don't want to suffer, and they need to be helped, they need to be rescued. So that gives them a lot of energy and courage to go in there and even risk their own lives to save people, to help people. So we usually develop compassion in meditation by meditating on how we don't want to suffer and others don't want to suffer, and then generate or build up this wish for suffering to be finished, to be ended. And this practice of Tonglen is connected with compassion. It's a practice that can increase our compassion and give us more courage and more energy to, not just wish for others to be free of suffering, but do what we can to relieve them from suffering. And so there's different ways of doing the Tonglen practice. So I thought before the break, we'll do one version that's relatively simple, and it involves using some experience that you yourself have some suffering, some problem. Because the real form, the way it's usually explained in the Tibetan tradition, you think of the suffering of others. In fact, they they ask you to think of all sentient beings who are suffering, and then take on all of their suffering. And some people may feel comfortable to do that right from the beginning, but others people may feel a bit that may be rather hard for them to do. So they say that it's good to start with your own suffering, to learn to take on your own suffering first before taking on the suffering of others. So I came across this little practice somewhere, sometime, I don't know, I can't remember where, but I find it really helpful. So I thought I'll lead a meditation in that. And it's also a really practical thing that you can do when you are experiencing it can be any kind of problem. It can be something physical, like a headache or stomach ache or pain, and any physical discomfort or pain. Or it could be a problem internally, feeling depressed or hurt or sad or upset, whatever. Or it could be a problem in a relationship with another person or with your boss at work or whatever. So, any kind of problem that you have, big or small, um, when this problem is happening, naturally we feel unhappy. We don't want it. We don't like it. We may try to find ways of getting rid of it, which is fine. We can certainly solve problems if that's possible. But sometimes there isn't a solution, at least at the moment. Sometimes we just have to be with the problem. So, this is a practice we can do to deal with the problem and actually turn it into something useful, something beneficial, something constructive, something that will help us to have more compassion. And it does give some relief to your unhappiness. Yeah, it really does help you to feel better about the problem rather than, oh, poor me, isn't this terrible? I don't want this to happen, and so on. Okay, so it's a very short and simple practice. So I'll guide it together. We can do it together. And then after the break, I'll talk about and lead another Tonglen practice, which involves taking the suffering of somebody else. So once again, sit comfortably. Try to keep your back straight. If you're feeling sleepy, it can help to leave your eyes open a little bit, not close them all the way. And just look down onto your lap or on the floor in front of you. So that way there's some light coming in, and the light can help you to stay awake. Check your mind, and if there's any thoughts in your mind that are not related to the meditation that we're doing, put them aside for now. Decide to stay focused on this meditation. So let's start by trying to get in touch with what is a very kind of natural, instinctive feeling that we have in our own mind and everybody else has as well. That is the wish to not suffer. It's like almost like a little voice deep down inside of us that says, I don't want to have pain. I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to feel bad. I don't want to be unhappy. I don't want people to hurt me. So it's that kind of feeling of not wanting anything that's painful or unpleasant or bad happening to us. And instead, wanting only to be loved and cared for, protected by others, to be happy, peaceful, safe, have our needs and our wishes fulfilled. So basically, wanting to be happy and not wanting to suffer. So just see if you can go into your own mind and recognize or get in touch with that feeling. So it may be hard to really notice it, but it underlies just about everything we do in our life. Most of the things we do are attempts to find happiness, to fulfill our needs and wishes, and to avoid suffering and problems. And there's nothing wrong with feeling this way. It's not wrong or bad to want happiness and to be free of suffering. According to Buddhism, we deserve happiness. We deserve to be free of suffering. We have a right. It's like our right, natural human right to be happy and not suffer. So it's completely okay to feel this way. But we also need to understand that we're not the only one who feels this way. Everybody else feels the same way. Everybody wants happiness, peace, good experiences. Everyone wants to be loved and cared for and protected. Nobody wants suffering or pain or problems. So try to see if you can recognize that. This attitude you have in your mind is also in the mind of everyone else, all human beings and all sentient beings, including animals, insects, fish, birds, and so on. They all feel the same way. And then see if you can feel how nice it would be, how wonderful it would be if all of us could have what we wish for, happiness, and if we could all be free from what we don't want, suffering, problems. Try to feel that that would be a good thing, an ideal thing if it could happen. And now bring to mind some problem that you are having in your life right now. You might have a lot of problems, but just choose one. And it might be better not to think of the biggest problem that you have. Thinking of that might be overwhelming. So Better to choose something that's relatively small or medium sized. It could be just a feeling of discomfort that you have right now. So focus your mind on that problem and try to notice if your mind has a kind of wish to reject it, avoid it, push it away, not want it, rather than just accepting it. And sometimes when we try to reject a problem and push it away and fight against it, that instead of helping, that can make things worse. We have this war going on inside of us, and the problem can actually get worse rather than better. So it can be quite helpful to change that attitude, and instead of trying to get rid of it or push it away or reject it, to accept it. Stop struggling and fighting and just accept the problem. After all, everybody has problems. We can't go through life without experiencing problems. And accepting this problem can help us to have more compassion for others. We can remind ourselves that I'm not the only person in the world that has a problem like this. Other people have a similar problem to mine. So try to think about people. There might be people you actually know who have a problem like this. Or you can just use your imagination and think of other people who have such a problem. And some people might have this problem even worse than you do. See if you can think of such people or imagine people who have an even worse kind of problem than you do. And then see if you can feel compassion for those people. Even if it's hard to feel compassion, you can just say to yourself, how nice it would be if all of those other people could be free from this problem. Because I know what it's like. I know how painful it is, how unpleasant it is. And I don't want this problem. So I can understand that they don't want it either. They would like to be free of this suffering, this problem. And how nice that would be if that could happen. And then see if you can change your attitude towards your own problem. Mm, instead of rejecting it, accept it. And accept it with the wish that by doing that, by accepting it, all those other people, all those other beings who have the same kind of problem can be free of theirs. So you could just say to yourself something like, by my accepting this problem in myself and going through it, enduring it, experiencing it, may all those other people, all beings who have the same kind of problem, may they be free from theirs. Just notice if there's been any change in your mind and your attitude, the way in which you look at the problem or feel about the problem compared to the beginning of the meditation. Can you notice any change? So when we do the practice of Tonglen and feel this wish for others to be relieved of their suffering, it doesn't mean that somehow that is going to happen. We shouldn't expect that everybody, all the beings who have that kind of problem, suddenly don't have it anymore. So, in fact, that's not possible. It's not possible for anybody. They say even a Buddha, even an enlightened being, cannot take away somebody's suffering because each person is responsible for their own suffering. We are the creators of our suffering due to our ignorance, our delusions, our karma. So we create our suffering, and only we can free ourselves from our suffering. So nobody can do it for us. So that's not the purpose of doing the practice of Tonglen. It's not to actually stop the suffering of others, but it's rather to work on ourselves, to change our own minds, to increase our compassion, our love, our altruism. And it can make a difference. For example, there's stories sometimes of people being, say, in a hospital room where somebody is in pain, sick, dying. They do this Tonglen practice, and they can feel there's some change in the atmosphere. Yeah, things get more kind of calm and peaceful. It doesn't necessarily mean the other person suddenly, is cured of their cancer or whatever, their pain. Not that, but just the mental state, the psychological state of both the person practicing and the person you're practicing with, that they can become more calm and peaceful. So that's a benefit that can occur, that one can experience. Did you notice that during the meditation? Did you notice any change in your attitude about the suffering, about the problem? So it can happen. Instead of being kind of upset and frantic about getting rid of this problem, solving this problem, you can sort of relax and become more calm and peaceful. And sometimes when we are in a better state of mind, more relaxed, calm, and peaceful, then sometimes the problem might just go away by itself. I've had that happen. Or we're just in a better state of mind to be able to deal with it. So we might be able to see solutions that we didn't see before. So we might be able to find salt remedies, solutions to the problem. So it might help. But even if it doesn't, even if the problem is still there, at least your mind is in a better state about it. You're more calm and peaceful, not so upset. So it can help in that way. So how about we take a break now, about 10-minute break, and then we'll do another Tonglen meditation after the break. Okay. So it said that if you feel uncomfortable or not ready to do the Tonglen practice of taking on others' suffering, then you can practice it with your own suffering for a while and get used to that. And then after some time, you might feel ready to move on to taking on the suffering of others. And then it's good to start with people that you love and care about, because for them, it might just happen naturally and spontaneously. For example, I've heard, I'm not a parent myself, but I've heard that parents who love their children very much and they see the child is suffering, like is in sick or in pain or upset, crying, they feel so strongly that they want their child to be free of suffering. They might feel, I wish I could take that onto myself so that my child doesn't have to suffer. Have you ever heard of that? Have you ever felt that? If you've been a parent? Yeah. So it's something that just happens naturally, or at least sometimes for some people. Um, but we may also feel this, something similar if there's a person we love very much. It could be our mother or father or sister or brother or friend or pet, and you love that person or that being so much, and you don't want them to suffer. And when you see them suffering, you may feel, oh, I really wish I could take that suffering away from them and make them not suffer. So that's the basic idea of the Tonglen practice: is that we feel such strong love and compassion for another person or another being that we would like to take the suffering away from them. And um, there's different ways of doing it. The way I have learned it from my teachers in this tradition is that you imagine the suffering of the other person or the other beings as, you can imagine it like smoke or fog or something like that. And you imagine it coming out of them and taking it into yourself. And you can do this with the breathing. You can imagine as you're breathing in, you breathe in this suffering in the form of smoke or fog. And then you imagine this suffering coming to your heart, and at your heart, not the physical heart, but the heart chakra here in the middle of the chest. You think of your own problems, your suffering, your bad karma, your delusions, and especially what they call the self-cherishing attitude. This is an attitude we have where we feel I am number one. I am more important than everybody else. It's like self-importance, self-centeredness, that kind of attitude. Because they say that is a big obstacle to enlightenment. In order to become enlightened, we have to be willing to put others first before ourselves. So if we're always used to putting ourselves first, we have that kind of attitude, and we don't change it. We don't, get beyond that. We won't be able to reach enlightenment. So we need to overcome this habit, this tendency of feeling I am number one. I am more important than everybody else. So we can think that that kind of attitude and all our other negative attitudes are there in our heart. And they say you can visualize it as some kind of dark rock or uh, anyway, something kind of dark. And I was thinking, when I heard about black holes, I thought, oh, that's a good image to use, because they say that whatever goes into a black hole just goes out of existence. I don't know if that's true or not. Is that true? Okay. But anyway, this is what I imagine. I imagine that, there's this black hole at my heart, and that represents my own kind of negative energy. And then you take the suffering of others in, it goes into that, and everything just disappears. So the black hole, the suffering, your own negativity, all just goes out of existence. It vanishes. And then you think of your good all the good things you have, your good karma, your good energy, your good thoughts and feelings. So all the good stuff you have in your life, you think of that as this very beautiful light or a jewel. They say a wish fulfilling jewel. So you can imagine some really beautiful jewel, all sparkling and shining and sending out rays of light. And then you imagine rays of light going from there out to others, goes out to the person you're thinking of, and and then that way you're sending them happiness and good energy and everything they need to be well and happy and so on and so forth. So that's the taking and the giving. So first you take on the suffering of others and then give your happiness to them, and you can visualize them getting this positive energy and becoming more peaceful and happy and getting their needs and wishes fulfilled and so on. So it's a very nice practice, a very beautiful practice. So I thought we could try this with somebody, thinking of somebody we know and love and care about who's experiencing some suffering right now. And you don't have to think of something that's really huge and overwhelming, like somebody who may be dying of cancer. I mean, you can if you want to, if you feel ready to do that, but you could also think of something smaller, like somebody just being a little bit unhappy or, having a little injury in their body that's causing them a little bit of discomfort or pain. So you can just choose a person and a problem that you feel you can manage, that won't be overwhelming for you. And you could choose somebody you know if you want to, but you could also just think of a stranger. You could think of, say, a refugee or somebody in Africa right now who doesn't have enough to eat. So you could just think of anybody, anybody you wish. Okay, so once again, make yourself comfortable, but try to sit with a straight back and eyes open a little bit to make sure you stay awake and not fall asleep. And if there are any thoughts in your mind not related to the meditation that we're doing, put them aside for now and do the best you can to focus on this meditation. It won't be very long, but try to really stay focused on the meditation. And if other thoughts arise, just notice them, but then put them aside. You can always think of them later if you need to. And think of a person that you would like to do this practice with. You could think of someone you know and care about who is experiencing some problem or difficulty right now. Or you could choose someone you don't know but is experiencing suffering and you feel moved to help them be free of their suffering, to take their suffering away from them. And if you can, have a mental picture of that person. You could imagine them in front of you or wherever they are right now. Just have a mental picture of them there in that place. And then think about this suffering, this problem that they're going through. And try to let your heart be moved, touched by the difficulties they're experiencing. Try to feel how nice it would be if they could be free from this suffering, this problem. And see if you can go one step further and feel, I would like to take away the suffering of this person so that they don't have to experience it. And then imagine that at your heart, at the heart chakra in the center of your chest, there's something that represents your ego, your ignorance, your other delusions, hatred, desire, and also the self cherishing attitude. That means the attitude of thinking I am more important than everybody else, self centeredness, self importance. So, that kind of attitude. And your own suffering and bad karma and so on. So, all your own kind of problems and obstacles. Imagine them in some sort of form like a black rock or a black hole. And then imagine the other person's suffering coming out of them in the form of something like fog or smoke. Imagine it coming into yourself. If you want, you can do it with the breath. You can imagine as you're breathing in, you're taking in this suffering in the form of smoke coming into you. And it goes down to your heart, to this place where this dark thing is. And imagine this suffering absorbing into that dark thing at your heart, or the black hole if you want. And there it just completely vanishes, it disappears, it becomes non existent. And imagine this black hole or black rock or whatever at your heart, that disappears as well. Just completely goes out of existence. And then in its place, now visualize something very, very beautiful, like a star or a jewel or sun, something bright, light, radiant, sparkling. And that represents all your good karma, all the good karma you've ever created, the good things you've ever done, all your good qualities, your compassion, your love, your generosity, your ethics, your devotion, so all your goodness represented by this light or jewel or star, whatever. And it's sparkling and sending out rays of light. And then think about this person and how they want to be happy. They want good energy. They want happiness. They want to be loved. And see if you can feel the wish for them to have the happiness that they wish for, all the good things that they wish for. How wonderful it would if that could happen. And imagine sending rays of light from this thing in your heart, your good energy, rays of light going out from that to the other person. And you can do it with your breath. When you breathe out, you can imagine this light going out to them, going right into them, into their heart, filling their body and their mind, and bringing them all the happiness they need, they want. So, whatever they need, whatever they want in order to be relaxed, peaceful, happy, fulfilled, satisfied, imagine them getting that from this energy you're sending to them. And try to feel that they really are happier now. They are more peaceful, more calm, more relaxed, more relieved of their suffering, more happy. And then just let your mind rest for a few moments in that experience, whatever experience you have at the moment of having taken on the suffering and given happiness to this other person. So you probably feel some sense of satisfaction, some sense of having done something really good, really positive. So let your mind rest in that experience. So that should give you some idea how to do the practice. And the more we practice it, the more we get used to it, familiar with it, then the easier it becomes. And you can also do it just in your daily life. You don't have to be sitting in a formal meditation situation like this, but even as you're going about during your day, you become aware of somebody um, who's unhappy or having a problem, then you can just in just a few minutes you can do this kind of practice. I remember when I was living before in my apartment, and for a while there was a family with a small baby living downstairs, and sometimes I'd hear the baby crying, and at first I would feel kind of annoyed. It's not a very pleasant sound, but then I would think, oh, the baby's crying because it's suffering. It's unhappy. It's in, something's going on that's making it unhappy. So I would just do this practice. I would just think, may I take on the suffering of that baby and send out my good energy to the baby. And it's a much nicer thing than being annoyed. Why doesn't that baby shut up? so, um, so it definitely changes my mind. I don't know if it did anything for the baby or not, but it definitely had a positive effect on my mind. And they say this is a really powerful practice for creating the causes for enlightenment. really helping us to have more altruism, more compassion, more love, and getting closer to enlightenment.
Who was that woman you mentioned again who wrote about this a lot?
Pema Children. You never heard of her?
Yeah,
She's one of the most famous Buddhist
PEMA.
teachers. Pema, Pema Children, Chodron.
Like I've
Lots
heard
of
the name,
books,
but I
lots
haven't
and
heard
lots
her.
of books. Yeah.
Was she a Ritmachi or is she like this other woman that came, the mind rolling? What's her name?
I'm trying.
Khadro. Was she one of them?
No, she hasn't been recognized as a Rinpoche. She was a student. I mean, she was a student of Karmapa, the previous Karmapa. And then when he passed away, she became a disciple of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. Yeah.
She's
And,
written a lot about this meditation.
well, there's a lot of books of hers. For example, there's one called When Things Fall Apart. Um, the places that scare you. Yeah, there's lots of them on the shelf there. Some are in Danish, some are in English. So you can look afterwards and find some of her books. Start Where You Are is a really good one. That was one of her first books. Start Where You Are. And I can't remember all of them, but
Training mind. Is
I
it
haven't
training?
read it. Hmm? Yeah, 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 yeah.
There's a lot of things, even if you take all this out, still has a lot of training. Something like that. He has been
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I haven't read that book, but I think because she was his disciple, I think she probably, you know, took on his way of teaching the practice and then passed it on.
I know when I saw the Dalai Lama in California a few years ago, he was also talking about this. And I remember also Carla Ritmaji was saying that you didn't have to be a Buddhist or anything to practice that. That you could
Yeah.
become completely enlightened in one lifetime. Didn't need any initiations or
Also, in Sogyo Rinpoche's book called Tibetan Book of Living and
oh
Dying.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
that book?
yeah.
Yeah. So he has a whole section in there about Tonglen with different ways of practicing it.
Oh, okay.
And there's a really interesting story he mentions about this man in New York City who was an artist and he was dying of AIDS and he was relatively young. And he wasn't at all interested in Buddhism or any kind of spirituality, but a friend of his heard about this practice of Tonglen and thought it might be helpful for him. So he taught him the practice of Tonglen. And it really helped this guy. It didn't save his life or anything, but because he was feeling the suffering he was going through was meaningless. Like, why am I experiencing this suffering? There's no reason, no purpose, no meaning to it. It was like totally meaningless. So this gave him something meaningful to do with his suffering. So that helped him a lot, like to see a meaning in the suffering that he was going through. So it helped his mind to have a better attitude about his suffering. So, like you say, you don't have to be a Buddhist to do this practice.
I know some people have been scared that they might catch some illnesses or diseases.
Yeah, they say that. Yeah, it's not actually possible. Unless you have a really strong karmic connection. There were some cases apparently of people who had a strong karmic connection, and then one person tried to take on the other person's suffering and did actually get it. But most of the time, that doesn't happen. So you don't really have to worry about that.
But on this black hole thing you were talking about, because they have found out that with black holes, there's a certain kind of energy that's radiating out from the black holes. That's coming out.
Yeah.
So I was using that as the white energy, and then the other. So with that technique, you could do it simultaneously, where as you're
Yeah.
bringing the black energy and the good energy.
Yeah, the black hole is just my own
Yeah, but it's
invention.
good
It's
though.
not
It's
the
good.
traditional one, but it's
No,
just
it's
something
good
that
though. It's good.
yeah. I
maybe
found it
even
helpful.
simultaneous visualization if you have
Yeah.
the good energy radiating out of the
Well, they say that when someone is really good at this practice, they can be doing it with every breath. With every breath, they're taking in suffering, and then every exhalation, they're sending out good energy. So it can actually become something you're doing continuously. I haven't gotten to that
yeah,
point, of
well,
course, but people who
physically
are
it's
real
really good
yogis,
because when you're having a
somebody
horrible
like,
argument with someone or a really big fight, you can still be independent there. I anyway close to that.
I'm not
So
sure.
if you think about it, I mean, physically, there's nothing difficult about it. It's a mental block because physically you could just do it. I mean, you could just, but it's actually the most difficult meditation and the most simple one at the same time.
Mm. Do you
My
have?
question is a little bit off topic, but we were talking before the session tonight about like we started tonight, you help us motivate the practice, and usually you also help us dedicate it. So we were discussing this a little bit and how it's I guess it has to do with generating merits and all this, and then we were talking a bit about merit and what is merit, and I don't know. Can you say like give some perspective on that?
Yeah, it's kind of a mysterious phenomenon. I think of it as positive energy. Like when you do something good, you do something positive. They say you leave some positive imprints on your mind. Maybe it's similar to good karma. Yeah. So just like when we create bad karma, we're leaving imprints on our mind that's going to bring about problems in the future. So when we create merit, we're creating good energy, and that's going to bring about good things in the future. So that's how I think of it. And I also think of this is just my own idea, but I think of it like fuel for a car. you know, you have a car and it has the potential to be able to take you somewhere. But if there's no fuel, then it's not going to work. So you put the fuel in the car and then it can zoom off and take you where you want to go. So I think of positive energy like that or merit like that. It's like giving us fuel so that we can actually progress on the path towards enlightenment.
And how
That's
does that interact with the practice of motivating, dedicating? This whole thing. I've also heard that when you dedicate whatever good energy you've created or whatever you've created, that you it's like taxing it, that you won't
yeah.
be destroyed by anger or
Yeah. I mean, the thing about motivation is that what it is that makes an action really beneficial or positive or virtuous is your motivation. So, like you can have several different people giving money to charity, for example, or giving a donation. And one person might be doing it because they want other people to see them and think, oh, he's a good guy. So they're just thinking about their own reputation. Another person may be giving it out of real compassion. I really want to help those people, so I'm giving this money to help them and relieve their suffering. So that's a good motivation. But somebody who's a bodhisattva would be thinking not only of those people that I'm helping directly, but thinking about all sentient beings. What I really want to do ultimately is become enlightened and help all sentient beings be free of their suffering. And this act of giving, may this help me get closer to enlightenment so that I can help all sentient beings. So they say with that motivation, the action becomes hugely positive, beneficial. So there could be different motivations for doing the same action, and depending on what kind of motivation you have, the action will become more or less meritorious. So the physical action itself may be the same. The three different people are giving the same amount of money to the same charity, but the merit that's being created will differ according to the motivation that they're having. Does that make sense?
yeah, so it will become better fuel.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's the way
I
of
was thinking
saying
of
it.
it as a bank deposit, that you making this good karma, you're putting money in.
Yeah,
Like that.
that's another analogy, and that's why they say dedication
Yeah,
is
that's really,
important
really putting
because
money in the bank.
a good bank, a safe bank, not a bank that's going to collapse tomorrow and then you're going to lose all your money. So, yeah, that's why dedication is so important, to make sure that the merit we created really stays safe and secure and will be there all the way up to enlightenment and not be lost or go
Yeah, I was
bankrupt.
just thinking when we were doing this tongue in that, in the Catholic theology, the idea that God's Son got crucified to take all man's bad karma. I mean, that's a
It's
big
like
one.
Tonglen. It's like Tonglen.
Yeah, it is a
When
tongue.
I heard about Tonglen, I thought, oh, that's what Jesus was doing.
Yeah, that's the big tongue. Well, it's the big
Taking
tongue.
on this
It's
suffering,
the big tongue.
taking on this suffering for the sake of all
Yeah,
beings. Maybe, maybe.
How do we make sense of this, like this protecting of this good energy? Patient of
I don't know. I don't know how it works. I couldn't explain that. It's just what they say. They say that if we create some good karma or merit, and then if we don't protect it by dedicating it, then it's possible that later, if we get angry, like really, really angry, or do something really, really negative, that good karma can be wiped out. But how or why that works, I don't know.
maybe I just thought that maybe if you put like fuel, so you put like pour on a lot of fuel in this car, then uh, then maybe dedicating like be like making sure that this fuel only take you there to that goal. Otherwise, I don't know if you're in the car and you got really angry at someone on the sidewalk, you might use it to turn the car around and ram some people or whatever.
I mean, it's similar actually with our bad karma. If we do something negative, we create some bad karma, then that has the potential to bring about some bad experience, bad result, some suffering in the future. But it's not it's not definite, because if we do, there are practices we can do, purification practices, where we can stop the bad karma from bringing about suffering. We
so you
can
can't
change it.
dedicate the bad karma.
No, so no, I mean, I'm giving that as an example because it's similar with good karma. So bad karma can be neutralized so that it doesn't bring the bad results. Good karma can also be neutralized so that it doesn't bring the result that we want.
Well, I think if you dedicate the karma, basically the good karma, you're giving it all away. So if you're giving it all away, then it's safe, because there's a supposed to be a thing in the
Yeah.
universe. If you give everything away, the universe is supposed to give back. So
Actually, the analogy they use, which might be helpful, is they say, like with water, if you have a small amount of water, and if you just leave it there by itself, it might evaporate, right? It'll evaporate. But if you pour this water into the ocean, it mixes with the ocean, and then as long as the ocean is there,
yeah, that's
it will never disappear. It will always be there. So they say that's similar to dedicating. When we dedicate our merit, it's like adding our merit to the merit created by all other beings and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and it will stay there like a big ocean of merit. It will be safe up until enlightenment. That makes sense? So maybe that's a better analogy than the fuel. That was a little bit complicated. But I like that analogy. When I'm dedicating my merit, I imagine pouring my merit into this huge ocean of merit that was created by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So I'm adding my merit to that. And that ocean is never going to dry up. It's going to
so it's like
remain.
you're increasing the ocean when you do that. That's safe.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah. And that ocean of merit is going to bring about enlightenment for all living beings. I don't know, something
Well,
like
that's
that.
a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. I want to stop here because I did want to talk a little bit about something else. Because you probably heard that there's going to be some changes happening in this center. We'll continue having classes until the end of June. And then July will be holiday, summertime. And during July, the center is going to be moving out of this place. We're not going to continue renting this place. And then after summer, probably from the middle of August, we'll start using another place. Probably at this point in time, it looks like it'll be the Karma Kargyu Center, whose name I can't remember. Remember the name of it? Sangye Tashiling or something Tashiling or something like that. Anyway, that'll be announced. And we'll probably what we're going to do is rent those facilities also on the Tuesday nights and the Thursday nights. So we'll still have classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and also weekend courses and retreats occasionally. And the idea so far, it's not definite, but that I might be teaching on the Tuesday night, and then Stefan Pende will teach Thursday nights. And for my classes, I would like to know what people are interested in because I've tried different types of things, and I just thought to let you have a chance to express your wishes. So I made this little kind of survey form where you can. I wrote down some ideas for classes for subjects that I could teach, but also there's a space for you to write in your own. If there's something you really want, you could add that in. So if you could take one of these, you don't have to fill it out tonight. If you could take it home and fill it out later and just return it and either give it back to me, or you could leave it over on the table there where the donation box is. Okay.
I have a question about this thing about not wanting others to suffer, because if you really go fine, you're thinking about this, it's hard to avoid making someone suffer, because you might also do something that indirectly causes someone to suffer, maybe far away from your own country or whatever, in the way you consume or the way you live, or I mean, so if you think that far, then you might even have to become, I don't know, a monk or a nun to avoid actually any kind.
Well,
Do you get my point, or like?
yeah. It's, I mean, when you really think about it, like even when we eat food, yeah, the production of most of the food that we eat does require some harm to other living beings. Even if you're vegetarian or even a vegan, when they plant crops, vegetables, and so forth, then there's insects in the soil that get killed. So it's very hard to live, even if you really, really wish not to cause any suffering to any living being. It's very hard to live our life without even somehow indirectly other beings being harmed. So this is just how it is in samsara. According to Buddhism, we have this saying samsara, it's just the nature of samsara is like that. As long as we're in samsara, there's just all this suffering. So, but there is a way out. We can become free of samsara and we can help others become free of samsara. So instead of just getting all upset, oh, so much suffering and I'm causing suffering and I don't want to cause, you just think I'm going to put my energy into doing as much as I can to get out of samsara and help others to get out as well. So at least there is a way out. If there was no way out, then it would be pretty depressing, but there is a way out. And everybody can reach it. According to Buddhism, everybody has the ability, the potential to become free of samsara. So this is what the Buddha has done. This is what others are trying to do, working towards that. And
I guess different people choose to do it their way.
yeah, not everybody. I mean, yeah, some people choose to be a monk or nun, but some people feel that's not for me. But in any lifestyle, any way you live your life, you can be working towards relieving suffering and bringing happiness and working for enlightenment, help others. Okay, let's finish by dedicating our merits, adding our merit to the great ocean of merit of all other beings and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So we spent the 2 hours together tonight doing some meditation, and trying to generate really positive attitudes like compassion and wishing others to be free of suffering, and then actually doing a meditation to imagine taking away the suffering of others. So, this is a really good thing to do. It's a way of creating good energy or merit. And we can then dedicate this merit. That way it's protected, safeguarded from being lost or dissipated or neutralized. So we can dedicate it and in that way share it with other people, other beings, and make it a cause for all of us to reach enlightenment. So it said that by dedicating our merits to all living beings, to our attainment of enlightenment, then that merit will be protected and not lost, not damaged until enlightenment is achieved. So we can think of it as pouring our merits into the great ocean, the vast ocean of merit, positive energy created by everybody else, especially the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Okay, thank you. Night.